With the looming threat of U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs, a Buy Canadian movement has picked up across the country. You may have noticed it when you go into grocery stores or supply shops, a tag that tells you if the product you're about to pick up is made in Canada.
Politics may be a game for leaders, but its consequences have shaken the economy. As relations between the United States and Canada have become strained, Canadians have chosen not to protest in the streets. They have responded in a quiet but powerful way, turning their backs on American products. In less than a few months, iconic American brands that were deeply embedded in Canadians' daily lives have struggled with plummeting sales. Stores have closed en masse. Consumers have evaporated without a trace. The wave of boycotting American products is spreading rapidly across Canada like a tidal wave, sweeping everything away. Let's take a look at the 5 big American brands that are struggling because of the hidden boycott wave from Canada. Familiar names are gradually being erased every day. Why Canadians turn their backs on famous American brands. Once close trading partners and inseparable allies, Canada and the United States share a 9,000-kilometer border, the longest between two countries in the world. Yet that long-standing relationship is fraying by the day. The tensions began when President Donald Trump unexpectedly imposed a 25% tariff on most goods imported from Canada, while U.S. products imported into Canada were subject to a 10% retaliatory tariff. This made Canadians feel unfairly treated. Since then, they have switched to supporting domestic products, minimizing the consumption of American goods. Beyond trade, Mr. Trump's series of controversial statements on social media, especially his idea of annexing Canada as the 51st state of the United States, has sparked public outrage. For many Canadians, it is a serious insult to national sovereignty and identity. In response to the U.S. move, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau quickly responded with tariffs worth CAD $155 billion. At the same time, he called on people to prioritize domestic goods, domestic tourism, and support Canadian businesses. This call quickly spread, becoming an underground but widespread movement in the community. Since reading about President Trump's tax policies and statements, my family and I have decided not to buy any products from the United States, said Ken Lima Quello, a resident of Windsor. This is our way of showing our national pride. A recent survey by the Angus Reid Institute of 3,310 respondents found that 85% of Canadians surveyed plan to replace U.S. products or have already done so in response to tariff threats from the Trump administration. I typically buy good food regardless of brand or buy low-priced products that still guarantee quality, said Garland Colson, a 58-year-old businessman in Spruce Grove, Alberta, Canada. But since the U.S. imposed tariffs of 25% and 10% on Canadian steel and aluminum, respectively, he has come to hate American goods. He said the steel and aluminum tariffs Canada has faced from a close trading partner like the U.S. are a slap in the face. In recent weeks, he has been picking up more Canadian-made products to put in his shopping cart. In just a few months, many American corporations have felt the consequences. Sales plummeted, hundreds of stores closed, thousands of employees lost their jobs. It is worth mentioning that this wave took place quietly, without causing any noise, but left serious consequences, and many American investors only realized it when it was too late. 5 big American brands are struggling because of the hidden boycott wave from Canada. Walmart in Canada is being boycotted by people. In a small town outside Edmonton, Clara Jensen, 67, has been a loyal Walmart customer for 20 years. Every morning, she pushes her cart through the grocery store, greeting the staff and choosing vegetables, toilet paper, bread, etc., believing that Walmart is the best place to save money. But in recent months, she has stopped that habit. Not because of the price, not because of the quality, but because of one thing that weighs heavily on her heart. I don't want to put my money into a place that no longer sees us as friends. Clara's quote perhaps sums up the sentiment of many Canadian consumers today. Walmart, the world's largest retailer with annual sales of more than $600 billion, has long been a symbol of the robust growth of the North American consumer economy. With more than 400 stores in Canada, Walmart is not just a place to shop, but a part of the lives of millions of families, from working parents to frugal students to seniors like Clara. However, this giant is gradually being turned away by Canadians, not through public protests or criticism, but through silence at the checkout counter. No more promotions, no more long lines, just "store closed" signs. In just over a year, Walmart has quietly closed more than 8 stores, mostly in small communities like Calgary, Alberta, and St. John. Places that once bustled with shoppers are now just dusty windows and empty parking lots. This withdrawal leaves many voids that cannot be filled. Why are Canadians leaving Walmart? The reason is not the price, it's the value. Canadian consumers are increasingly resistant to the penetration of foreign corporations, especially when these corporations are not truly engaged with local communities. On online forums like Reddit, many Canadian consumers have called for a boycott of Walmart in favor of local retail chains like Loblaws, Sobeys, and Metro. They argue that shopping at local stores not only helps sustain the domestic economy, but also shows national unity and pride. Walmart is an American company and an economic vampire sucking money out of Canada. "Don't spend any Canadian money in their stores," one Reddit user shared. On consumer forums, the phrase, "I shop local, not Walmart," is spreading rapidly as a quiet but resolute declaration. A 45-year-old woman living in a small town near Edmonton who had been a loyal Walmart customer for 20 years said, "I used to think Walmart was the best place to save money, but then it closed, leaving the whole town without a big supermarket. They came in, made a profit, and left. And we were left with empty shelves and frustration." Not only is Walmart boycotted for political reasons, it is also facing a disregard in the new consumer culture. Once considered a symbol of efficiency, low prices, and abundant goods, this model is now considered outdated, even offensive. Young, conscious consumers are increasingly concerned with values like sustainability, social justice, and kindness in business. In their eyes, Walmart represents an overly Americanized model that extracts maximum profits from global supply chains, underpays its employees, coldly closes its doors when profits run out, and ignores its environmental impact. The "everyday low prices" slogan, once a big selling point, is now being questioned ethically. Are those truly low prices worth the trade-offs of worker insecurity, supplier burnout, and environmental degradation? A middle-aged man living in a small town in Canada has given up his Walmart habit and now frequents cute local stores, even though the prices are a little higher. When asked why, he smiled and said, "They don't just sell stuff here. They know who I am, ask about my family, and more importantly, I feel connected." Small shops are winning not because they are cheaper, but because they are part of the community. And perhaps that is what corporate America has forgotten in its journey to globalization. In an era where consumers value quality over quantity, genuine connection over big profits, Walmart is at a critical crossroads. Its loss of market share in Canada is not just a business story, but a reflection of a profound shift in global consumer consciousness and behavior. McDonald's, the journey from icon to contemplative silence. On a small street corner in Toronto, John, a 42-year-old father, still remembers his childhood memories of McDonald's. For John, McDonald's was not just a place to eat fast food, but also a moment of family bonding, fun birthday parties, first dates, or simply weekend afternoons with a sweet McFlurry. But now, John admits one thing. "I no longer see McDonald's as a gift for my children. It's not as appealing as it used to be. It's just an old habit of a generation that is no longer interested." John isn't alone. Across Canada, restaurants bearing the golden arches, once symbols of American-style fast casual, are seeing their customers disappear. Since mid-2023, McDonald's revenue in Canada has fallen more than 12%, with Quebec hardest hit, down 19%. Many stores have been forced to reduce hours, cut staff, and even close long-standing locations in places like Montreal and Vancouver. What's notable isn't the loud closures, but the quiet retreat of Gen Z customers who grew up on McNuggets and McFlurries. They're turning away not with declarations of war, but with indifference and forgetfulness. So what's the reason? Simply put, the world has changed. Modern consumers, especially Canadians, not only want fast food, but also demand transparency about the origin of their food, nutritional quality, and even brand social responsibility. Is the beef clean? How much sodium is in the food? Does McDonald's really care about the environment? These questions are more important than ever. As McDonald's ramps up automation and cuts costs to expand globally, it has inadvertently lost sight of the core values that have made customers loyal: familiarity, health, and community. As McDonald's has increased automation and scale, the brand has drifted away from the familiar, consumer-friendly values. They have inadvertently lost the core values that once made customers stick together: familiarity, concern for health, and community. Can McDonald's still maintain its iconic status in the hearts of the people? That symbol once represented prosperity, convenience, and unity of a dynamic country. But now in Canada, its fate is different. Coca-Cola, global icon losing ground in Canadian market. For over a century, Coca-Cola has not only been a popular soft drink, but has also become a cultural icon associated with moments of joy and togetherness. However, in Canada, America's northern neighbor, the presence of the familiar red Coca-Cola can is gradually being overshadowed by new consumer trends. Coca-Cola used to be a holiday staple, and opening a can of Coca-Cola was a joyous moment, said a longtime Toronto consumer. But now, when I look around the stores, I see people choosing other, more natural, healthier drinks. According to an internal 2024 report, Coca-Cola lost nearly 9% of its market share in Canada, a remarkable figure in the beverage industry. The main cause was identified as a clear shift by Canadian consumers towards more clean, natural beverages such as organic mineral water, herbal teas, kombucha, and local sodas. Major supermarket chains in Canada are also gradually reducing the space they display Coca-Cola, making room for more health and environmentally friendly products, showing signs of a quiet revolution in shopping habits. A 2024 Canadian market survey found that more than 62% of Gen Z and millennial consumers no longer see Coca-Cola as the default choice in the beverage category. With growing health and environmental awareness, younger consumers are prioritizing products that are low in sugar, preservative-free, natural, and transparent about ingredients. More than just a can of soda, Coca-Cola is now considered a too sweet and too industrial product in a context where consumers want to move towards a healthier and more sustainable lifestyle. Once a symbol of connection and simple joy, Coca-Cola now faces the reality that fond memories are not enough to hold Canadian hearts, as the world and consumer attitudes have changed. Coca-Cola has tried to adapt by introducing new product lines such as Diet Coke, Coke Zero, and reduced sugar versions. But according to experts, that is still not a strong enough solution to meet the diverse and sophisticated needs of the Canadian market. To appeal to younger consumers, Coca-Cola experimented with new flavors such as Coca-Cola Spiced and Coca-Cola Orange Cream. However, both failed to live up to expectations. Coca-Cola Spiced, introduced as a permanent flavor, was discontinued after just 6 months due to negative consumer feedback. Similarly, Coca-Cola Orange Cream, despite heavy promotion, received criticism and failed to attract the expected customer base. Today's consumers care not just about taste, but also about the origins, production processes, and social impact of their products. Meanwhile, Coca-Cola is still considered a symbol of the large beverage industry, sometimes far from community and environmental values. Maintaining its long-standing position in the Canadian market requires Coca-Cola to quickly innovate its strategy, from product to communications, towards greater transparency and social responsibility. This is not just a story about a product, but a lesson in adaptation and sustainable development in the 21st century. The food industry is also suffering the same fate. Kraft Heinz, American food icon, gradually loses its position in Canada. Not long ago, if you walked into any Canadian kitchen, chances are you would have come across at least one Kraft Heinz product. From bright red bottles of Heinz ketchup to golden Kraft cheese tubs, nearly 80% of Canadian households consumed at least one Kraft Heinz product each week. Kraft Heinz was an integral part of North American life, meals, and consumer culture. What was once normal, however, has become abnormal. In the first quarter of 2025, Kraft Heinz reported a 7% drop in North American sales, with Canadian sales down 6.5% year-over-year. While Canada still accounts for some of the revenue, the decline is a clear sign of a loss of confidence among Canadian consumers. In the face of trade tensions and food quality concerns, Canadian consumers are shifting their support to products that are clearly sourced from Canada. Many are using barcode scanning apps to verify that products are truly made in Canada, avoiding labels like "Prepared in Canada" or "Designed in Canada," a phenomenon known as maple washing. Strolling around supermarkets in Toronto or Vancouver, you'll notice that Heinz ketchup is no longer front and center. Kraft dinner cheese shelves are also giving way to organic products, local brands, and homemade options that are becoming more popular. Canadians are increasingly demanding to know where their food comes from, its quality, and especially the sustainable, environmentally friendly values that brands bring. "I can't separate the brand from America's current image," said a Winnipeg mother. "I feel uncomfortable continuing to support it." Kraft Heinz has not only faced a trust issue with its products, but also with the business policies it implemented after the merger in 2015. The closure of the plant in Lamington, Ontario, a land famous for its tomatoes, and the shift of sourcing to the United States and Mexico has left many Canadians feeling abandoned. Many workers have lost their jobs, creating a wave of discontent in the community. It is not just about products, but also about jobs, national pride, and community connection. In response to the anti-American sentiment, Kraft Heinz has adjusted its marketing strategy in Canada, emphasizing the use of Canadian ingredients in products such as Heinz ketchup and Kraft dinner. However, these efforts have not been enough to restore consumer confidence, as consumers still feel that the brand lacks a real connection to the local community. Kraft Heinz expects revenue to decline further in 2025, with a 3.5% to 10% year-over-year decline. To combat the decline, the company is looking at price cuts, increased promotions, and product innovations to re-engage consumers. However, changing consumer habits and concerns about food origins could make recovery more difficult. Canadian consumers turn away from Kraft Heinz as a wake-up call for global brands about the importance of building genuine and lasting relationships with local communities. Campbell's in Canada. When memories of warm cans of soup become strange. "When I was a kid, I used to think of Campbell's as a kitchen staple," says Mark Thompson, a 45-year-old chef in Toronto. "But in recent years, I've seen fresh, organic soups on the shelves, even made by smaller brands closer to home. I've switched to using them because they feel more natural and safer for my family." Once upon a time, the click of a can of Campbell's soup was a promise of warmth for family meals in the cold weather. But now, in Canada, that sound is a distant memory, gradually forgotten on the increasingly shrinking shelves of Campbell's. Mark is not alone. This trend is evident in market reports. Campbell's has lost more than 8% of its Canadian sales in the past 2 years, while its market share in the canned soup industry has dropped by 12%. Large supermarket chains are gradually giving way to local brands, organic and fresh products, to keep up with the increasingly demanding consumer trends of health and transparency. "I want my kids to eat the best, away from chemicals and preservatives," says Emma, a young mother. "I trust small, artisanal brands more than Campbell's." Consumer habits and expectations are changing dramatically. Campbell's, a brand with old-fashioned recipes and manufacturing processes, is becoming outdated to the younger generation, who value transparency, health values, and stories behind the products. It's no longer just a can of soup. It's an experience, a responsible choice. Campbell's is facing a big challenge. They are sticking to the traditional way of doing things while consumers expect innovation. If they don't change quickly, Campbell's will continue to lose ground in the Canadian market, said a market expert. Campbell's story is not just about falling sales or lost market share, but also about a profound shift in the needs and values of modern consumers. They want more than a can of soup. They want connection, transparency, and health. Mark Thompson concluded, "If Campbell's listens and innovates, they still have a chance to come back. Quality ingredients, fewer chemicals, and sincerity in the product will help them regain trust. And the question remains, will the one-time symbol of family meals adapt quickly enough to survive the challenging food revolution? Or will it remain a fond memory, gradually fading from the minds of Canadians?" Amid escalating political tensions between the United States and Canada, the turnaway of Canadian consumers from American brands is not only a social warning sign, it is also having profound impacts on the U.S. economy. How the U.S. economy is affected when Canada turns its back. Since early 2025, the Buy Canadian movement has spread across the country, fueled by apps like MapleScan and Buy Beaver that make it easier for consumers to identify domestic products. Major retail chains like the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, LCBO, have removed American liquor products from their shelves, including popular brands like Jack Daniel's. Canadian businesses are also getting in on the action. For example, a Toronto pizza shop decided to stop using American ingredients and instead source domestically, despite the higher costs and supply chain challenges. American retail chains in Canada are under heavy pressure. Hudson's Bay, one of Canada's oldest retail chains, filed for bankruptcy protection in March 2025. The company also announced plans to close all 96 stores if it cannot find new financing. Target previously pulled out of the Canadian market in 2015 after losing $1 billion in just 2 years of operation, due to a strategy of expanding too quickly and not understanding the local market. Several Facebook groups have been set up to organize boycotts and campaigns against U.S. goods since Mr. Trump first raised the tariffs. One group, Boycotts U.S, Boycott American Goods, had nearly 86,000 members before the new tariffs took effect. The group hopes the boycotts will pressure the Trump administration to end the sanctions. Using the U.S. Facebook platform makes sense, as it is the best weapon, the group added. Additionally, Canada is the largest source of international visitors to the United States, with more than 20 million visitors and $20.5 billion in spending in 2024. However, political tensions and boycotts have caused a sharp decline in Canadian tourism to the United States. Popular destinations such as Florida, California, and New York are expected to lose hundreds of millions of dollars in tourism revenue if this trend continues. Financial services firm Goldman Sachs estimates that a wave of boycotts abroad will reduce U.S. GDP by 0.1003% this year, equivalent to a loss of about $28 to $83 billion. If political tensions continue to flare up rather than be diffused, the economic damage will go beyond statistics. It will be a breach of trust between two countries that were once each other's largest trading partners. And, most seriously, once consumers have turned away because of damaged trust, no marketing strategy, no matter how expensive, can buy back loyalty. America may be an economic powerhouse, but if it fails to maintain the respect of close neighbors like Canada, even the biggest brands can become out of place in the land that was once called an ally. What we share in the video is for reference only and analyzed from many perspectives. Please combine other sources of information for a more complete and objective view.